Latte for Keenan?
That's me.
Hey, you're...
Yeah.
Buying a car online on AutoTrader?
Really? But unlike other sites, you can start online, test drive with a local dealer, then finish online or at the dealership.
Really? Wait, are you...
Yep, it's key.
Able to finish in person without starting the process over?
Really. Your info stays with you every step of the way.
Cool. Enjoy.
It's Keenan Thompson. Buy your car online on AutoTrader. Really.
I was pretty much just his sex doll.
Sammy was just 14 when she met Arshid Hussain.
He was 24, good-looking, muscly. He didn't look like a paedophile. That was a moment that changed my life forever.
This man would go on to groom and abuse her for years.
He's known to all the authorities as one of the most dangerous men in the UK. I became pregnant twice. All my sexual education came from a paedophile.
Until her testimony brought to light the biggest child sex abuse scandal in Britain's history.
8 men have been jailed for a total of 96 years for sexually abusing teenage girls in Rotherham.
It just blew up. I was physically sick. They placed a hit on me.
Who put a hit out on you?
Him and his family did. It was still happening and is still to this day happening.
The story you're about to hear may include sensitive themes. Please listen with care. The experiences and views shared belong to the individuals involved and reflect their own experiences and beliefs. So Sammy, when you first spoke out about the grooming gangs in 2013, your story exploded essentially and it got a lot of attention. What does your life look like now?
Well, when I spoke out, my life completely changed, just like it did the day that I met Arshid Hussain, and it's never been the same since.
How old was your abuser at the time when you met him?
It was just after my 14th birthday. He was 24, just come out of prison. He was good-looking, muscly, nice designer clothes, big gold chain. He seemed just like your average guy. He didn't look like a paedophile because growing up, I was taught a paedophile is somebody that, pulls up in a van, offers you some sweets, kidnaps you, you never see your parents again, or some, fat old man in a flat watching children in the playground masturbating. That's kind of what our description was, and he didn't fit that.
What was he like?
It was funny, he came to me as Prince Charming and he took a real interest in me and who I were, and he learned everything there was to know about me, who I was, my friends, my family, what movies, music I liked. He paid me lots of compliments, and, once he had all of that information, he then took me to his life, which was very different to mine, very dark, very violent, and once you're involved in that, it's very difficult to get out.
So this sounds like it began with a kind of love bombing, lots of nice things and taking you out on dates and trying to impress you, essentially, in the beginning.
Yeah, what he was doing and what that process was a grooming process. And some people don't recognise just how dangerous the grooming process is. I always say it's one of the most dangerous crimes for two reasons. One, because it's a silent crime, it's happening without you even knowing it's happening. And also it's a very enjoyable crime. So he would buy me flowers, we would go to the cinema. It's not always we went to restaurants, it was more like McDonald's. But, he would do things as your boyfriend would.
How did this relationship progress?
It progressed very quickly. And my parents found out very quickly as well because
what did they say?
Well, they weren't happy. Sammy's got a 24-year-old boyfriend and I was going missing out from home, days, weeks, even months at a time. And my parents were reporting this to the police. Now, I didn't recognise myself as a victim. I saw this man as my new boyfriend. And the police were saying that I was making a lifestyle choice.
Can a 14-year-old child make a lifestyle choice?
No, absolutely not. And, what we've got to remember is this is a man that is involved in all types of crime. He's dealing drugs, he's money laundering, stealing cars. He's been in and out of prison all his life. He's known to all the authorities, which we now know, and what he's actually now described as one of the most dangerous men in the UK.
So, obviously it was a relationship that was born from grooming. How quickly did that escalate to violence?
quite quickly. And, first it would start off with him shouting at me. Then it'd be a slap. Then it'd be, a kick, a punch, and it would escalate to the point where I was just becoming so normalised to it. So it then even got to a situation where if we was arguing, I wouldn't even wait for him to throw a punch. I'd just start throwing punches myself, or I'd kick him, or I'd jump into the back of the car. And, I was very tiny for a 14-year-old. I'm a child. He's, grown men feared him. So it did escalate quite quickly, but I came very used to that.
How does a 14-year-old process this violence and this relationship?
I didn't process it very well, if I'm honest. And, throughout all these years, I've never had therapy or counselling. You just have to get on with it and deal with it. You have to go into survival mode.
Can we talk about the sexual violence in the relationship?
So I saw, when I was having sex with him, I saw that as, this is my boyfriend, I love him, because he got me a ring, so we was engaged. But he taught me all my sexual education, and no child should ever get educated by a paedophile in those ways. But I was pretty much just his sex doll.
When did you find out that he was also abusing other children?
Well, I had girls, they would come up to me and say, he's my boyfriend. And, us as girls, we never recognised ourselves as victims at that point. So we would almost fight over him. And he would always deny it, or he'd say, she's my ex-girlfriend, she's jealous, and, she wants us to get back together. But it just got to the point where it was all the time. Every day, I'd be in an argument or a fight with some girl, I'd confront him about it and say, what is she talking about? He'd beat me up, rape me, I'd cry, he'd tell me it was my fault, I should be a better girlfriend, I make him do it. Then he'd, take me back to the beginning when we first met and, everything was wonderful. And I would then go and cry myself to sleep and wake up and do it all again. And then one of my best friends, I found out about, that, and it just totally broke me.
What was he doing with other children at this point?
Well, these children, and again, this has come out in evidence at the court case, some children were made to dig their own grave, some were poured in petrol, some children have actually been set on fire, killed their animals. So we're talking about the most horrific of tortures. You'd have a child on the floor being beaten and gang raped by 4 and 5 men with baseball bats. It's horrific.
Wow.
Yeah.
So while you were in this relationship, it's hard to even say relationship, isn't it? Because...
yeah, it's abuse.
It's abuse,
yeah. It's child abuse.
You were pulled into committing some crimes, weren't you?
Yeah. So when I was 14, he taught me how to drive. So I'm on a road, I ain't got a clue what I'm doing, driving a vehicle, which of course could have killed myself, could have killed someone else. So he was taking me to drug dealers' houses where we would rob drug dealers if they was dealing on his patch, because he was a drug dealer. He would take me on my first armed robbery for my 15th birthday. I thought I was going to get flowers and, a gold necklace or something. But he put me in a car that he'd stolen, gave me a police scanner. So my job was to be the lookout. Him and his friend went to a post office in Rotherham with a gun to rob it. And he was also preparing me to do other armed robberies. But there was an occasion when the police raided one of the houses that I stayed in, and they caught me half naked in bed with him. And I jumped under the bed, and I had a baton in my bag which belonged to him, which is classed as a dangerous weapon. So the police arrested me for that weapon, but allowed him to walk free.
Even though you were, 14, 15 years old at this point?
Yeah, this was around my 15th birthday as well. But, it's very good for these kind of people, criminals, to be getting me involved in crime, because if I get involved in crime and I start talking, it means that I'm going to be the one prosecuting, I'm going to be the one that gets the criminal record. So still to this day, I've got a criminal record. And when I came forward and exposed Rotherham, I was actually looking at 102 years in prison.
For what?
So that was for, things such as the armed robberies.
Even though you're a child and you were being abused and exploited,
Yeah.
you were held accountable for those crimes that you were, you know, essentially a bystander in. You're being abused and exploited in these situations.
Yeah. And what you've got to remember as well, you know, we've got the most dangerous men that's received the highest sentence in our history for these crimes, at times putting a gun to our head to, you know, to do these crimes, but yet we're the ones punished. And, you know, that's a campaign that I'm...
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
trying to fight for, to ensure that children like myself are pardoned, because of course the only people that should be criminalised is him.
How long did your relationship with the abuser go on for?
2 years.
Was there a moment when you realised that this was abuse?
I think it just became too much, and there was an occasion when I tried to leave him. We was in the car, he said if he couldn't have me, no one could. He started speeding towards the edge of a hilltop that overlooked all of Rotherham, and he said he was going to drive off it and kill us both. Right at the last minute, he slammed on the brakes and I got out the car. I was physically sick. He took me to the edge and said he was going to chuck me off. And I was that scared, I wet myself. He then placed me back into the car and had sex with me, raped me, as though nothing had happened whatsoever. And I remember just laying there and I was crying, but it was a silent cry. And it was like I was just this dead body on a slab in a morgue. And I had just this awful feeling, you know, in my pain all the time. It was just constant hurt. And I knew it was from him. I knew I had to get away from him. I just didn't know how.
Your family must have been so stressed and so worried about you during that period of time. How do you go about rebuilding those relationships with your family? I mean...
Well, my parents, when I was about 15, they placed me on what is called a Section 20. So that's where I'm placed into care, but my parents have full parental responsibility. And, you know, I think they did that thinking it would keep me safe, but it actually backfired. So the authorities said he could have access to me. They wanted him to meet me at the top of the street for the foster carers, and be back by 10 p.m. He was treated as my boyfriend, not my perpetrator. So, you know, I was kind of in a worse position now. In that time as well, I became pregnant twice. So I became pregnant first when I was 14, and I was forced to get a termination, which I'll be honest, it's not something I wanted to do. But my parents said that they was going to use the DNA evidence from my child to prosecute him. And so I had the abortion, and then I got pregnant again at 15. And the authorities said that I was allowed to keep my child and he wouldn't be prosecuted. I think with my parents, they just kind of thought, she's going to have this baby whether we like it or not. We've got a choice. Do we help her or not? So, yeah, I started to come home and I had my son. And that was kind of one of the reasons I just got out of it.
And I suppose as a person, you know, after walking away from the abuse at 16, how did that affect you in your later teenage years and your 20s?
It affected me in every way. You know, every decision I made came from that, because I was never offered any proper counselling or support for what I went through, so I never recognised it as being wrong. I really struggled with friendships and relationships. I mean, I was actually celibate for nearly 9 years. I'm back celibate now, because all my sexual education, that relationship education, came from a paedophile.
What is so unjust about your story? I mean, every single part of it is heinous and awful. You know, what really, really is sickening is the fact that it's not a child's responsibility to recognise abuse. You know, you were groomed, and children are not equipped necessarily to recognise that, let alone report it.
Yeah.
But when you did find the strength to be able to do that, you were essentially ignored.
Yeah. At every angle, everywhere we turned, we was ignored, which is why I went public and to the media, because, before I contacted Andrew Norfolk at the Times in 2013, I tried to deal with this privately. So when I started to recognise myself as a victim, which I was about 27 years old, so I walked into a petrol station and I saw a newspaper that said something along the lines of 3 Asian brothers I'd befriended. I think it was around 54 girls. And I knew instantly it was him and his 2 brothers because they were so prominent, not just in our town, but in the country. They were so well known. And I got the newspaper, I read the article, and I remember ringing my sister. And I kind of just had a breakdown, and, I kind of started to drink as well. I tried to take my life. My sister called the mental health team and I got a social worker called Nikki. And she said, look, I recognise that you've been through something. I think you should talk to the police. Would you do that? And I said, yeah. So the police officer came out and I actually recognised her. When I was an adult, I reported a sexual assault, nothing to do with the grooming, and she was the officer that dealt with it. And even though I had a tape recording with a full confession from the perpetrator, she said that I would never be a credible witness in court because, she actually said I was a gang member. Wow. So again, at that point, still not recognising me as a victim. So when I saw her, I just thought, oh my God, this is a waste of time. But I said, I want you to go away, look at what evidence there is to support me in what I'm saying. And she came back with a male police officer, and what she didn't know was I was recording her on my mobile phone, which is a good job because it helped me expose Rotherham. So she said, there's only one piece of evidence, which is a missing persons report. I said, well, I've got DNA from my son, which proves I was 15. He was 25, he was an adult. She said, well, we don't want to take that because we would have to tell him why.
Really?
Give him a lot of mental health problems. I said, well, I can tell you the police officers' names. And she said, well, they're not going to come forward, and get the shit for you and lose their jobs. And I said, well, what about my safety? They said, well, we can't have the police car parked outside all the time. So it was kind of just like I was hitting a brick wall again. So I said, OK, I'm not going to come forward then. So what I did was I went and gathered all my own evidence. I got all my own police files, social care records, NHS, and I had the tape recording of the 2 police officers. So I had all this evidence and I took it to Andrew Norfolk at the Times. I said, there you go, here's my story. And we published it in August 2013. And to say I thought I was going to be ignored, it kind of just had the opposite effect. And it just blew up. And it opened every police investigation in South Yorkshire, which is now the biggest in our history. And those investigations are actually still ongoing.
Hey, I'm running out to drop off a stack of letters and packages. Need anything shipped while I'm gone?
Save the gas. Stamps.com lets you print postage and schedule pickups right from your desk. Sync your contacts into the address book, get detailed accounting insights, and get notified the moment your certified mail is delivered.
All from my desk?
All from your desk.
Join the 4 million businesses using Stamps.com right now with code PODCAST and get your free welcome gift. Stamps.com, code PODCAST. Taxes and fees apply.
When did you find out the extent of the grooming gang and how many children had been affected?
I found out the extent when the Alexis J report came out, which was a report showing that 1,400 children had been abused, raped, tortured, trafficked, and the authorities turned a blind eye to it. So before that, I kind of put it down to about 200 or 300 people. And then when the report came out and it was 1,400, I was kind of like, oh, wow. And then even after that, people were still trying to discredit what had happened. People were saying that I was crazy, I need to be sectioned, with damning amounts of evidence. They placed a hit on me.
Who put a hit out on you?
Him and his family did. So yeah, it's been very, very difficult as a family to deal with. And, obviously, I'm a mum, first and foremost, so it's my job to protect my children. But I felt I also had a duty as an activist to get this information out there because what was happening had not stopped it was still happening and is still to this day happening. And I thought, I've got this platform, I need to do something positive with it, and I need to shift that shame, from us and onto the perpetrators, because, they're keeping us in the dark because that's how we remain as victims. We've done nothing wrong, we're not to blame. We're adults now, we shouldn't be afraid of them.
Where is your abuser now?
He's still in prison. So when we got to the court case, there was 8 defendants, 2 got found not guilty. Earlier when I said to you I was looking at 102 years in prison, those 6 in total got 102 years in prison.
Wow.
So I was looking at the same time for being a victim as what they got all together.
Wow. Does your son know about his father?
He does. He's actually met him and had a very brief relationship with him. When my son was about 9 years old, I got back in contact with him. At this point, I'd still not recognised I was a victim of exploitation. The authorities felt that having him in my son's life as a father figure would be okay. And we had a relationship with him for about 9 months. I don't go into details about what happened in that time. My son has got his own story to tell and I have to respect that. But it's a decision that I'll regret for the rest of my life, and a decision that I've got to live with for the rest of my life. It's been very difficult for my son because, he's got to process the fact that his mum has been raped. The man he knows as dad is the cause behind that. He also had to deal with every male member, so all his uncles have also been arrested and in prison for the same offence, not towards me, but towards other children. And he was born from all of that. So even though when I first spoke out, I changed my name, I'm called Jessica. And we actually in the Times newspaper said my son was a girl, to protect us. But we were so well known in the community, people knew who he was. So my son would go to school and the children, would be telling him things. And I remember collecting my son from school and he said, "Mum, am I a rape baby?" And I said, "No, you're my baby." But that's a lot for a 12-year-old to process. There was no professional, and still isn't in this country, and this is why I'm campaigning for it, that is trained in regards to children that are born of rape.
So you've done a lot of campaigning in this space now. What does your work look like now?
So I've campaigned around the licensing. I want to ensure that children are pardoned that have been criminalised, so that's dubbed as Sammy's Law. I am trying to strip the parental rights of rapists so they can't access children born of rape, which is what they try to do to me. So children born of rape will be seen as victims within law, which is really important because it gives them legal status. They will be supported properly, at least they should be. So, 2 really important campaigns.
Thank you so much, Sammy, for coming on today. It's been such an eye-opening story. I'm so sorry for what you've been through, but I'm so pleased that you are working so hard and so tirelessly to make change in the world and hopefully, changing people's lives and saving people's lives. So thank you.
Thank you for having me.
If you or someone you know has been affected by the issues raised in this episode, please refer to the description for external resources.